Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez. I'm coming at you today with this is a podcast with Dr. Lee Thomas on health, harmful chemicals, and maybe a couple conspiracy theories that we go over and more, a lot of stuff. Medicine has changed quite a lot. Health has changed quite a lot over the last couple of, it's changing all the time, but especially over the last 20 years. Back in the day, stuff like, oh yeah, when we were kids growing up, and anyone that's in our 30s, we kind of know. And I'll add him on here right now to get his opinion on it. My man, how you doing?
How's it going, sir?
Doing all right. Just gave you a little intro here, just telling people about what we're going to go over today.
Sure.
And I guess just over specialties as well. Coming a little broken.
I'm getting all set up here. Give me 2 seconds. Sit down.
All good. All good.
All right.
So there is
friend.
Doing well. Thanks. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for making time.
Yep.
Obviously, there is a bunch of specialties that people can go in. There's a bunch of things that people can really study on, even if they haven't gone to school. Just to tell us a little bit about kind of what school you went to and what you specialize in currently.
Yeah, sure. So went to Ohio State for undergrad, and then I finished my doctorate at Palmer College of Chiropractic. Then I spent there we go. Then spent about 2 years working in a specialty for scoliosis and surgical spinal care. So basically what a lot of our specialties in our clinic are functional health. And then we're one of the few clinics in Ohio, one of 25 in the US, that can actually take someone with a scoliosis and reduce their spine non-surgically to help them live a better life, live longer, reduce the risk of surgery long-term, and just stay healthy overall. So we've built Columbus, yeah. And so we do metabolic health, chiropractic, nutrition, decompression, regenerative health. We do a lot of focus ultrasound and peptide care. So many things like that are kind of cutting edge in the realm of functional nutrition and natural health and wellness that have really just become huge in the last 5-10 years or so. Everyone wants to live to 100 to 120 now, and we're trying to help people achieve that.
And when you talk about regenerative health, are you talking about the little cushion between the spine? Like, can you inject like stem cells in there and actually take discs that are bulged and discs that are kind of rubbing against each other and make it more comfortable?
I think I lost you. Say it again.
For regenerative health, whether it's people that have bulging discs or people that have ankylosing spondylitis or just the general fusion of those things, is it possible to get the cushion back in there by injecting stem cells, or what other type of regenerative treatments are you talking about?
Yeah. So great question. So when you come to regenerative health, you're looking at basically reversing injuries is the best way to put it in the body. And so you can have it in the spine, you can have it in shoulders, extremity joints. There's 3 really common ways of regenerative care. One is using stem cells, which is probably the most commonly heard of one. And not that I have anything wrong with stem cells. I think they can be really powerful. You can also inject exosomes, which are small cellular compounds that are proteins that signal for healing. Exosomes floating within the body help tell the brain where injuries are. And so that's kind of like a cutting edge thing that you could call it on top of stem cells or more advanced than stem cells. But exosome injections now help really trigger healing in a site-specific area. You can trigger those exosomes to upregulate healing by using focus ultrasound, which is what we do inside of our clinic. So focus ultrasound is a topical way to stimulate the production of stem cells and exosomes inside of the body. And so basically we use a high-powered ultrasound in an area that's injured, and injured muscles, injured ligaments, injured tissues, they respond to the ultrasound by sending these exosomes out of the cells. And I'm going to get really nerdy really fast here, but basically exosomes are protein molecules, and those are very nociceptive to the brain. They trigger pain in the brain, and they tell the brain, hey, there's a new injury in an area. So let's say that you injure your shoulder, for example, and it's really bad, and you give it like 3-4 months and it heals up 30-40%, and then it kind of stops there. A lot of people have lingering shoulder problems for years, if not decades. And if they try to use it all the time, they're going to end up tearing it. And so now what we're realizing is you can re-trigger the body's own natural healing process by using some of these regenerative therapies to basically help the body re-heal areas that otherwise it wouldn't keep healing indefinitely.
And as far as recovery time, let's say if an injury were to take 8 months to heal, with these exosomes in conjunction with whatever cells you want to put in, how long does that recovery time get cut down to?
Yes, you can cut the recovery time anywhere from like 70 to 90%, in all honesty. So, yeah, so a lot. You look at any pro teams now, focus ultrasound therapy, exosomes. Like they're using those things. They're using that along with either stem cells or PRP, which are the other two forms of regenerative therapies. PRP being platelet-rich plasma. So they take out your blood cells, they spin them in a centrifuge, and they pull out the plasma layer and then inject them into your body. So there's a couple different ways to achieve that that accelerated healing. But really, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're basically retelling your brain that there's an injury in an area, and it massively cuts healing time. And basically, you can't heal everything. So if you have a tear that's like 3 millimeters or greater, you're not going to usually heal that. But tears that are 3 millimeters or smaller in muscles or tendons or ligaments, usually those will recover and heal well.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is outside of any type of saunas or ice baths or like nutrition. This is just on those specific treatments, regardless of what you do secondary to that.
Yeah, just on those specific treatments will help. And then obviously secondary stuff can help it. Red light therapy, hot cold contrast, infrared sauna, peptides, healing peptides, good protein, high omega-3s, getting the body all the resources it needs to help heal. Yeah. We're all realizing as we get older that nothing lasts forever. And so we want to try to keep that youth as much as we can. The more of those that we incorporate into our lives, it seems like the better we do overall.
Yeah. From like October through like mid-April, I was on the couch for like 7 months. My back finally went to foot. And it got better enough to where I was able to get in the gym a little bit, do some workouts. Like there's still certain things that I couldn't do.
Okay.
But at least get some of that exercise in there. And then like 3-4 days ago, it just went kaput again. And it's like, it took like 3 days ago, it took me like 90 minutes to get out of bed. And then 2 days ago, it took me like a half hour. Then yesterday it took like 11 minutes. But still like turned the wrong way. And I just like collapsed. So I 100% need what you got.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can do a little telehealth diagnosis right now. I'd put my money on the fact that you probably have a disc injury. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, those little pads in between the spine, they're fickle. They basically, you want a 2-minute background on discs?
I've had this injury before, so I'm fairly familiar with it. But yeah, just a quick rundown for everyone listening here.
Sure. So discs are little small jelly filled donuts, and they essentially grow as we go through puberty. And at around the age of puberty, 17, 18 ending, they lose their vascular supply. And so discs become their kind of own separate entity inside of the body. And they're pretty fastidious. They're pretty resistant to injury. But once they're injured, once that inside fluid goes out of the disc, it's impossible for it to reheal again. And so what happens is if the spine's out of alignment, the discs can break down faster by pushing out for like a normally aligned spine. And then the only way to help it really is to align the spine properly and help tighten the muscles and ligaments around that space. Because what happens is if there's a scar on the back of the disc, the material will keep ripping out. Essentially, you'll get a little scar on the back of the disc will start to reinflate, and then that scar will rip and it'll re-herniate again. And so disc injuries can be chronic issues that I've had too since I was 16 years old. They can be chronic things that they seem to never get better. They get better, then they go bad, then they get better, then they go bad. Using some of these regenerative things helps you go further between flare-ups, and they're much more minimal. So you can still do the things you love to do. You can go to the gym, work out, beat your body up a little bit. I have 2 blown discs in my back, and I still go. I've jumped out of helicopters before, so you can still do some crazy things and know that your spine's going to be a little bit stronger and be able to withstand those forces without just going out every time you walk to the car with a bag of groceries. That's my 2 minutes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Yeah, we'll I'll 100% make an appointment after this. As long as the VA covers it, we'll be good. Right. Outside of that, so when I went to a clinic, some show that you put on, talking about just everyday harmful chemicals that people really don't necessarily know about, and for whatever reason they're out there, and either the government, the media doesn't tell us about it. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown on why this is so important and how you got into it?
Sure. Yeah. I didn't really care about chemicals when I was in school. When you're young, if you're young and healthy, you don't really care about anything. And then I got into practice and I started taking care of people in my community. And you learn really quickly that there's a lot of sick people out there and a lot of really good looking sick people too. You tend to think, people who are sick are look a certain way, but I take care of some of the most beautiful people in the world. And I can tell you almost everyone right now has got some type of issue or problem going on. And so you start to look at the whole health of America as a whole, and there's easy outliers that you can see as why we're some of the big reasons why we're unhealthy. Obviously, we're a sedentary culture that was made to move. Humans are built for movement. And obviously sitting 8 to 12 hours a day like the average American does is not good for us. You can look at, posture as an example of why we're having problems, hyper man-made foods that are out there. We have lab chemists who work for a long time to make sure that chips taste so good you want to eat the whole damn bag. And it's lead to an overconsumption of calories, which has caused obesity. And as a result, all of these autoimmune conditions and chronic conditions that have come on. But then there's this other factor to it. There's chemicals that are now being produced massively, and they're very potent in our food streams, in our cosmetic products, in our personal hygiene products. And it's weird because I guess the problem is everyone knows about them, but they're so omnipotent. And a lot of the big manufacturers, take your Procter and Gamble's and big companies like that, they don't just own one brand at the grocery store. They own like 98% of the brands. And so a lot of people try to find healthier products, but you kind of give up after like 2-3 goes because you want to get your stuff and go home. And so what we're starting to understand now is that although a lot of these chemicals have not been researched thoroughly, or they were pushed through by some type of, specialized campaign to get them through, we've seen a lot of problems from chemicals. We've seen the glyphosates where people have massive amounts of tumors on their body, especially in people who care for their lawns or who are career people who work in like greenskeeping. And so now the question is, okay, how much are these chemicals actually causing problems? We're just kind of starting to do more and more research on the long-term effects of them. And, from my standpoint, I sort of have a life philosophy that kind of guides the decisions I make. And one of those things is I want less chemicals in my body rather than more. I think a healthy person needs less chemicals to stay healthy long-term. Like I look at a person who takes 20 medications a day and 0, I'm going to put my money on the person with 0 to be healthier long-term, because our body's not really built to break down lots of man-made chemicals. And the more it bogs down our liver, the more we see problems. Best way I can put it.
So there seems to be, and obviously that phrase will probably resonate with a lot of people. Hey, the less chemicals in my body, typically the better. Usually the shorter amount of ingredients you have on something, usually the healthier it is for you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people really getting behind Bobby Kennedy for the Make America Healthy Again, but a lot of the media seems against it because he's hasn't been to school in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why some people are really getting against the resistance of us just having less chemicals in our breakfast cereal?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's so sad. I think there's a lot of issues with it. I think number one is whenever you start attacking very large companies that employ a lot of people, someone put it to me this way, like if your career depended on you not understanding something, meaning if you understood something, you could no longer make money off of it. It's going to be pretty hard to understand, So like if you take a massive, Fortune, I don't know, 50 company, and let's just say P&G down in Cincinnati, and you tell them, hey, you have to change all your formulas right now, and all of your substances are on the shelves, you can't do anymore. And let's say they make billions a year off of those things, right? They're going to fight those. And the problem that we've started to understand within government is that money definitely moves things. And there are lots of deals that go on. I'm not privy to everything, but I have a good understanding that there's a lot of backroom deals that go on, a lot of things that get approved and pushed through because, money is power. And so anytime that you're trying to change anything, medical care, hospital care, chemicals, there's always special interest groups that hurts. And so, as a general whole, we say, there should be less chemicals in our products overall. It goes down the line even deeper than that because there's so much falsified research now. And so it's honestly really hard to tell what the truth is because you'll have special interest groups doing their own research and publishing their own studies saying, hey, what we do has been found to be safe. And they're the ones paying for the research. So it's really hard to determine, okay, is this actually something that's going to be good and healthy for me? Or is this industry sponsored research that's sort of lying to me? And there's no criteria to publish negative research. So they might do a study 15 times and find one of those to be positive, they'll publish that one. But there's 14 other studies saying that it is chemical and it can cause problems. And we don't get to know about that until 30 years later when all the lawsuits come out. So I think money is a big driver in it. I think that status quo is where a lot of companies want to stay. And if a company has to uproot and remanufacture and redistribute all its products and research it, it's so slow they'd rather just fight it on the front end.
Follow the money. Very good point.
Yeah.
So as far, I know we don't have like a ton of time, but what is the worst of the worst things that everyday people can easily stop and avoid? Is it the boiling of water, like boiling hot things in plastics? Is it certain cleaning chemicals that everyone has, like we all have 409 or we all have whatever?
Yeah, for sure. So I think interior cleaning products are probably one of the biggest, and just ventilating your home appropriately. The EPA estimates that the air inside of our home is anywhere from 2 to 5 times more toxic than the air outside. It's something we're breathing all day. You can look up research studies where the person who cleans the home has higher rates of lung problems and lung cancers. So like if you live in the same home and you're not the one cleaning it, but your spouse is, and they're the ones using all the chemicals, they have a higher risk of getting sick. So the more proximity you have to those chemicals, we're talking harsh bleaches, harsh aerosols. If you go on EWG, the Environmental Working Group, for 5 minutes and research it for yourself, you'll see the major ones that are out there. But I'd say if you clean up the home, the air in your home first, and then your water, you're well on your way towards better things overall. So really quick, you can do a home water filter. You can even use something as simple as a charcoal filter like a Brita. That'll help a ton. If you use a whole home filter, that's another great thing as well. And then if you, stop eating plastic, it'd be helpful. So don't store foods in plastic containers. Don't drink out of plastic containers, or limit it as much as humanly possible. That you're going to go a long way towards eliminating some of those things. If you want the one next step from that, if you go to personal hygiene products, and again, the best thing to do is spend 5 minutes and download a couple apps. You can download the Yucca app. You can download the Think Dirty app from the Environmental Group, and you just scan items in the store, and literally it'll pull up the chemical list on them, and it really takes a lot of the grunt work out of it. I used to give people 18-page documents and expect them to go to the store with that, and the reality is not a lot of people are going to do that now. But there are apps now where you can scan it, the technology is built in, and they can tell you, hey, this is good, this is bad, switch these around. The less you put on your skin, the better you're going to be overall.
I before I joined the military for like a decade, I was in the veterinary field, and like 80% of your job is cleaning.
Yeah.
Am I cooked? Is it
So wouldn't necessarily say you're cooked, but we all do things that make us more susceptible in the long run to having problems. And so one thing is again, philosophy guides a lot of how I research and what I tell people. And what I believe is your body's always trying to heal. Like until the minute your heart stops beating, your body's always fighting to detoxify you, to bring health back to your body. So, but on a daily, weekly basis, we're either making strides or we're walking backwards. And so someone might have more exposure to chemical agents at a younger age, but I think if you work on detoxifying yourself now and in the future, I really think you're going to give your better self a better chance to live long. Your liver is an incredible healing organ inside of your body. My brother, he had a ski accident 2 years ago, and he had massive 3-inch lacerations on his liver. His kidney was shattered too. It took his kidney 4 months to heal. His liver healed in 10 days. Your liver heals unbelievably quickly. It's very helpful at detoxifying your body. Without it, you'd be gone. And so as long as you're giving yourselves the right thing to help your body detoxify, I really think that you can pull out of any type of a tailspin that you've been in the past. I just think it ups your odds for it. But unless you were exposed to something truly carcinogenic like Agent Orange, or something that you can't get away from, like radiation, you know what I mean? Your body's got a good chance of fighting it as long as you turn it around now.
Yeah, the radiation would most everything you back like 20 years ago, taking X-rays, you got it covers your chest, covers your balls, covers the important stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got to Levittown Animal Hospital, like 2.5 years later, that they had like a throat guard. I was like, what the fudge is this? And they're like, oh, it's to protect like your throat and your trachea. And I took, I don't know, like 1,000 X-rays with that. And now obviously the light and the beam, like I made it as small as possible, so there wasn't too much bounce back.
Yeah.
But I probably took 1,000 X-rays without a throat guard.
Yeah.
In the military, they had all the water bottles that we have are stored outside, like in the sun. Like I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff floating around in me.
Yeah. For sure. And so with x-rays too, you get so just to go over that real quick, so you get lead, there's lead lining that has to be in there. And so typically from ground radiation, I wish I had the data on me right now because I could go through it with you. X-rays are not as high in radiation as you would think. I don't even have to wear a Geiger counter based on how many that I use. The big ones that you have to avoid as a patient are CT scans, because a CT scan is the equivalent of anywhere from 1 to 4,000 X-rays, depending on the dosage. And so, yeah, so if there's a limit on those, you can get about 3 a year. So the thought process is if you have, 4 or 5 X-rays, it really is very small in comparison to other things that have more radiation in them, right? But yeah, the plastic water bottles, the phthalates, there's a study that came out last year. I'm going to say it and you're not even going to believe me, but it's like 9% of some people's brains now are plastic. It's alarming stat, and I say it and I almost wish it weren't true, but I've looked it up a couple times and I'm pretty sure it was from a reputable university, a Harvard or an Ivy League. They said a lot of our brains now are plastic because of the amount of phthalates, which are the chemicals in plastic that we consume or are delivered to us transplacentally, from a generational perspective, which opens a whole new can of worms on why we're sick. It's not just us, it's our parents, then it's our kids who are getting what we had too. So yeah, those things are a little more long run.
Is it that our brains turn into plastic, or is it that the plastic gets through the myelin sheath and it gets through stuff, and then there's just happens to be plastic next to or on our brains?
Correct. Yeah, it's microplastic accumulation over time, and then our body doesn't have a transport system to get rid of it. There are tons of companies right now researching the next supplement that is going to help remove microplastics from the body. It'll be the next large discovery. I work with a company right now that I'm a part owner in that's researching for a way to remove microplastics from the body, but it will have to be addressed at some point because we are becoming so plastic, and we know that it affects sex hormones. We know that we've seen changes in puberty and the rate of hormone dependent cancers has gone up. So it'll be on the front line in the next few years that you'll start to see microplastic detox. Again, we don't have long-term studies because we're just finding out about this now, but I really think it's a big thing to get rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the leading company that's fighting it? Like they have these, like I know there are companies that say like, hey, we developed this worm that eats plastics, and they put a bunch of those worms in the ocean, and then they eat those plastics and nothing else.
Yeah.
Who's the leading company to get plastics out of our brains?
I don't know yet, honestly. I really don't. I know that companies researching, but I just heard. So I'm not on the R&D team anymore. I used to. So I work with about 300 private practices across the U.S., and we self-manufacture our own supplements. They come from certified regenerative organic farms. So we basically look for pesticide runoff. We have them on hills that are away from, like we're uphill from other like conventional farming institutes, so we're not getting runoff from chemicals. We're a small operation compared to some of the bigger ones out there. I just don't know the names of them.
I want to invest so much money in those people because like it's super easy.
Yeah,
to get like a lot of these people to use that product. You have a bunch of like,
I've seen the things that like rove around the ocean now that like filter in the plastics and like just filter the water right out. And I mean, I love it. I'm a biology geek. I was before I wanted to be a doctor and help people, I swore I was going to be like an underwater explorer. Living in a submarine. That was what I would think I would do. So yeah.
Sven Don says, I would rather know what the problem the doctor sees using too much phones going on the VeVe app, for example, like people that they have a lot of radiation in their hands or wherever they store it, or scoliosis from just from looking down a lot.
Yes. So posture become an epidemic in the US. And so when you think about longevity in terms of it, our bodies are built, according to experts and who you listen to, anywhere from 80 to 150 years of health. And so when I think about your spine, what I think about is your spine gives you the potential to live that long. Your spine doesn't change your diet or your nutrition or your movement patterns. It can change your movement patterns, but like you can have a healthy spine and still take terrible care of yourself and be sick. But you can't have a terrible spine and be healthy, because your spine is where your nerves travel. And so for a lot of times what I see is that we have the potential to live longer now with the type of research we have, with the access to healthcare, the prevention of acute injuries causing death, meaning if you're shot, stabbed by a shark, have a heart attack. America is the best place to be. Like, they will save your life in a crisis better than anywhere else in the world. But when it comes to building long-term health, we really have like a crisis care system that's trying to do healthcare, and those things don't go hand in hand. So you want to be healthy long-term, you got to work with someone who specializes in longevity and keeping people healthy long-term. When it comes to the spine, basically the longer we're living now, if we're sessile, we're forming arthritis and degeneration from text neck, from forward-facing posture, from computers and from screens faster than ever before. I regularly will have teenagers come into my office now who have measurable arthritis in their neck because they spend 10 hours a day looking at their phone like this. Our body is meant to have curvatures in it. I wish I could show you, but from the side, your spine should have curves in it, and those curves help keep your body intact. They sort of act like a spring to resist gravity. So the better you can keep your spine aligned and your posture up, it makes a huge difference. Only about 2 to 3% of kids have scoliosis, but by the time we're 50, more than 50% of people on average will have scoliosis, which is curvatures in the spine that shouldn't be there. So the longer we have a problem, the worse it gets. So the more you can use chiropractic care, physiotherapy, postural ergonomic exercises, being smart through your workstation, that goes a long way to keep your body healthy long term and really give you the potential to live well long. The last thing I'll say on that is that when you look at causes of mortality in the US, spinal problems are now among the leaders of it, where years ago that wasn't the case. But now, back pain, neck pain, arthritis, problems caused by those are among the top reasons why we can't work, can't take care of ourselves, or can't take care of others. So you want a good longevity, you got to make sure that taking care of your spine is at the forefront of that, along with a couple other things.
Yeah. Also, I have you for the half hour or for the hour? Do you have somewhere in between?
I got anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. So we
Sweet.
can go, but after about an hour, I got to boogie. So
yeah, no, I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
So on the, I tell people that all the time. Well, before I get into that, my friend Jen, just one time I just saw her back, and I saw like a weird like S curve like on her spine. I was like, oh my God. And she was still able to function, still able to do stuff. But yeah, that people can function with weird stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I tell people all the time I'd never want to be sick in any other country other than the US, because I've seen other countries and their medical care is trash. Even if the medical care is good, a lot of times I have to wait for it. And I think you see a lot of problems with that in Canada or countries that have free healthcare. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is the healthcare bill that is trying to be passed right now, where it kind of takes away from certain types of Medicaid, and just your thoughts on how the country could fix its kind of healthcare issue.
Sure. Oh, that's such a good question. And these are things that I talk about all the time. You know, I read a lot about countries and healthcare around the world, and I do think that I think that there are a lot of places where there is better healthcare than the U.S. I think mainly in Europe.
In what way?
In what way? They spend less on out-of-pocket healthcare costs. They have longer. Okay. They have better longevity. They have less innovative medications. So as a country, we take a lot of medication. It's one of our primary sources. And so there are a lot of countries that aren't quite as pharmaceutically driven as the US is. So again, I think for crisis care, we're a great place to be. If you have an emergency, right? But when it comes to the other side of that and like building your health back up, I think we've really lagged with that. We've allowed, I think, a lot of pharmaceuticals to come in and kind of control what healthcare money goes where. You realize, like when Obama signed that the Obamacare bill, the people behind him were the 9 major heads of insurance companies, and so they're the ones who write the code. They're the ones who determine what gets paid for by insurance. And as much as we like to think about we'll just do whatever I want, you kind of like it if insurance helps you sometimes. You know what I mean? Having to pay out of pocket for everything is exhausting for some people, and being in like the more regenerative field, a lot of what we do is not covered by insurance. A lot of it is either too new. I mean, I have therapies in my office that were approved by the FDA 21 years ago, and they're still not covered by insurance, even though they're extremely helpful, right? And so the problem is, again, you have these big powers that cause problems, I think. Okay, so let me answer the question again. You were asking, how do we make healthcare better? So I think you have to incentivize wellness. Right now, as an example, they will pay for your heart surgery, $60,000 to $80,000 for heart surgery, right? They will not, however, pay for the things that help you prevent that heart surgery. So healthy gym memberships, healthy food, proper supplementation, preventative lab screenings to help make sure that you're not going through a cardiovascular issue. A lot of the lab tests that we do now to look for heart disease, for example, there are better labs out there. And so you can get a lab and they'll say, oh yeah, your cholesterol is 200, you're doing great. But there's so many other research labs out there that could give you a better idea of your potential for long-term heart health. If we found a way to incentivize those things, I think that'd make us better overall. And then I wish there was something we could do about technology, because sitting and being too sessile, we've kind of won the game when it comes to, like, we don't have to search for food very hard anymore. We don't have bad crop years. We don't have tough winters anymore, right? Like, we've excelled in the ability to essentially do less and still eat. Whereas if 200 years ago, you weren't fit, you weren't active, you weren't outside regularly, you probably weren't eating, right? And so there's so many ways to give back to society now through work that pays us. But a lot of people can earn money now and really not necessarily have to do a lot for their own health while they're at it. Whereas 200-300 years ago, you had to be physically active in some way, shape, or form, more than likely, or you weren't eating on that time. So we've kind of become too good at, surviving, and it's caused problems on the other side, problems of immobility and being sessile.
Gotcha. Thank you. And so now that you have Trump signed an executive order, I think yesterday or today, that a bunch of these pharmaceutical companies, America is going to pay now the cheapest amount that somebody is charged, let's say, wherever they are in Australia, New Zealand, anywhere.
Okay.
What does that do to health insurance companies? How does that affect the average person? Obviously, on the whole, it seems great. We're going to have to pay a lot less, but does that mess up insurance companies and premiums rise?
Yeah, I hope it helps. So if you take older technology medications and you put a cap on they're allowed to be paid, right? Companies will move, because these major companies, they have major investors, and again, they want their 6 to 8% of return a year, right? So if you down regulate the cost of things, it means we have more money to allocate towards other services. So if you don't have to pay $10,000 for one medication, then you can have money go to other things, right? So my hope is that it would alleviate the burden on the healthcare industry and allow us to split our resources into doing more robust things. And again, I think if you have Kennedy in there, he's going to push for more natural interventions. His son's life was saved by, using psychedelics. And if you've ever heard those stories, so he's a proponent of looking at psychedelic medicine, looking at alternative medicine. And yes, he's a lawyer by trade, but he's been within like the health reform industry for a long, long time. And it's not so much him as the fact that he probably has hundreds of doctors behind him who are more naturally minded, who are research backed. So he's not just like winging off the cuff, but I would hope that it would kind of open a way for us to have more of an option when it comes to healthcare, as opposed to just having to go to our hospital, meet with our doctor, receive a boatload of medication, and then be sent home. That it's more of a functional approach and an individualized approach to healthcare that could benefit us all.
Yeah, I like that about him as well. There's a lot to go over as far as what he's doing, what the ramifications are of stuff that he's talked about, and I don't want to go back to live in the past and talk about the Rona, but let's do a quick little thought experiment. Do you think that because there were a lot of misinformation out there around the time that the Rona was considered a pandemic?
Yep.
Do you think that desensitizes people, where if there actually is something that has a greater than 0.001% chance of actually killing you, that you think people will ignore it next time? Do you think that if a bug comes around, that whether it's made in a lab or not, do you think that people are going to ignore kind of the government next time, be like, hey, you told us this once before, it wasn't really true?
Yeah, it sounds like you think that too, but yeah, I'd agree. I'd say that, you sort of cry wolf and you overplay your cards. And we're in an age now where, think about 500 years ago, like a message came from the government and you had no way of fact checking it, right? Now with the internet, we can all talk, we can all communicate. And the gap between what doctors see and have privileged access to and what the general public has access to, it's getting smaller and smaller. So as soon as studies come out, like I'll have patients come into me and be like, hey, I found this study on my condition. This came out 2 days ago. and they'll have like copy in hand. And they're like, have you read this yet? And I'm like, I haven't even slept in 2 days. You know what I mean? Like, we take care of patients all day inside of our office, and sometimes it's hard to swim up. So if you're dedicated to researching and figuring out information from yourself with the power of the internet now, you can find out so much stuff. And so, yeah, I think that they poorly played their cards. I think they really overreached in some of the restrictions that we had going on. You know, I think they overhyped the helpfulness of masks as well. And I think that, yeah, they kind of ruined trust. I don't know how long it'll take to recover, but I think that everyone's kind of, from our generation at least, going forward, will kind of have a wary eye, you know? Yeah.
So we mentioned psychedelics before. I love psychedelics. I love LSD. I love mushrooms. And obviously, like, for two reasons. One, I have had a couple of friends in the military that got a little messed up, and weed helped like one or two of them. Mushrooms helped like three of them. Like, didn't need therapy. Like, they'd gone to therapy.
Yeah.
It like made it worse. And mushrooms just like, and they didn't need to take it like all the time. Like, I know a couple of girls that were on SSRIs, and it like completely fucked them up. And obviously SSRIs, I'm sure, help thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. But they just made a couple of my friends feel like really cloudy, really just like, yeah, it suppressed the bad feelings, but it suppressed all the good feelings as well.
Yeah, it flatlines you. It makes you a little bit numb towards having swings in emotion that we would, you know, attribute to being human, is that you can feel happy and feel sad. And it just kind of makes you, you know, very, very level-headed. So yeah, I think psychedelic medicine is an interesting field. I'm excited to see what the future holds. When you look at long-term results with like PTSD patients, and I'm going to butcher these numbers, but I think it's roughly 44% of them see like a benefit. And if you look at the MAP studies, which is for MDMA, which just cleared FDA phase 3 trials in 2023, there was like an 87-89% success rate for PTSD, and without having to have long-term dependence on the medications. And so again, you come back to this whole thing of, well, why did it fail? It went up for approval in 2024 by the FDA, and they shot it down. It's been 35 years of working towards that. And again, it comes into, I think a lot of it is like how fast healthcare systems can pivot, right? If they put this new thing out that helps people with PTSD and depression, which is one of the most chronic conditions in the US. I don't know where it is, but I can guarantee it's top 5 or 10 as far as chronic conditions are concerned. And they say, oh, there's this new therapy that's out. It's this thing. It's different. It changes all of your care protocols for millions of employees all around the US who work in hospital systems. They commonly don't want to release things like that until they have a system for it. Like, if they can't find a way to make money, they're going to wait. They're going to shelve it. You've seen it commonly. And so, while I think a lot of these things can work and can be helpful, it may be years, if not decades, before they're available to the general public, because of the fact that you've got these titanic ships that are hard to turn around. You know, nothing happens quickly, especially in the healthcare industry. So yeah, I am excited for these things. I've had a lot of my patients see benefits from using, you know, psychedelic medicine to help them, and especially with things like MDMA and with psilocybin. So I think it's an interesting future. I'm all for plant medicine, especially. You know, the more natural, the better. So I think the future's looking up.
So I have, and I tend to be a little biased because I love it. Not DMT. I think I take like the synthetic version like once, but so I have an issue with drinking. It's much better now. I've had like, I don't know, like 20 drinks the entire year, you know, so far. But I tend to have a really addictive personality, and again, I love mushrooms and LSD, but I've never found them addictive at all. I've never had any withdrawal symptoms. I've never said like, oh, God, I really need it right now. Is it addictive? And can it be addictive to other people? And I just don't get addicted to that, even though I do have an addictive personality. Is that something that people should watch out for?
Yeah. So when it comes down to like addictive behavior, not addictive behavior, I love these comments coming in. You have to think about like your own neurotransmitters. We all have a unique neurotransmitter makeup, right? And so, as an example, someone with an addictive personality typically runs a little bit low on dopamine, and certain substances increase the dopamine, so they increase your feel-good hormone, right? And so if you naturally speaking live a pretty sustainable life where you're not relying on substances, then you're not going to have that dopamine fix all the time if you've got your body's own natural makeup of dopamine. I think with a lot of psychedelics, for example, I think what they do is they show you the way to a better life. And I think that the more you feed into that, the more you reduce your liking for those things. So I think oftentimes people start with, substances as an escape, and really they should be sort of maybe used as a tool more so to help us through tough times, or to rediscover things about ourselves that make us want to strive to maybe have that feeling long term. So the more that you feed into even like a story like yours is saying, like, I have an addictive personality, it may just be because you haven't found the thing that makes you feel whole yet. And some of those things make you feel whole, and you don't need to, have that resistance for things. On that also, I'm huge on dopamine. I'm huge on helping the body produce its own natural neurotransmitters. So I think that the more people can tune into that, the better. So legally speaking, there's some easy supplements that can help with that. 5-HTP is a great one that helps regulate dopamine and serotonin. I'm a huge proponent of healing the gut, because 95% of our serotonin and 50% of our dopamine comes from our GI tract. So if people have imbalanced gut membranes, if they have not healthy bacteria inside of their gut, if they eat, an ultra processed diet all the time that's filled with sugar and refined carbohydrates and not protein rich foods, and they have low fiber, they're going to downregulate their gut health. And it's impossible to have good production of those neurotransmitters that help us feel alive if you have a damaged gut. So I love cause-based healthcare. I love getting down to the root of things. And the more people start realizing that, like, feeling great on a daily basis and being healthy long-term isn't a one thing. It's like, get your diet right, get your sleep right, get your mood right, research, be an advocate for your body. The more you work on doing all of those things, like, it can totally turn your life around. So gut health is a huge one of those. And, I can talk more supplements on that or anything like that, but I love where we're.
What type of flora or like supplements can you take? And I guess what type of test you would have to take, because you can't just take a butt full of supplements and expect it to work. You have to measure it first.
So I think at some point in people's lives, they should have a couple tests done. I think that looking at your SNPs, your common genetic, what are called SNPs for short, is helpful. So like COMT, MTHFR, those SNPs tell you what your genetic predisposition is for absorbing certain types of vitamins or supplements, or for where you might be genetically short stacked. There's 4 or 5 common ones that I run on my patients. You do it once in a lifetime. It's a great test to start with, looking at your inflammatory ratios inside of your body. So not just looking at like a basic blood panel, like a CBC-CMP, but looking at like LPA, looking at homocysteine levels to see if you're actually inflamed or not is a great idea. And then to look at your gut health, we usually use Genova Labs, but you do like a GI mapping test to see exactly, you've got 130 different types of major species of bacteria inside of your gut, and they all got to play nice. So what I think about is I think about gangs of New York. Okay. If one gang gets too powerful, they're going to destroy all the other ones. And so your gut must work in a homeostatic balance. And if some get too high or too low, those are the ones you have to target. So you can do some general things to improve your gut health. Eat more whole foods, seek out fiber and protein with every meal, get tons of omega-3s. But if you've had like long-term gut issues, the only way to really get to the root of it is to map it. Do a GI map test, see where you are. Now we can literally, the test is maybe $700-800, and you can literally see exactly what your flora looks like, the health of your gut membrane, and you can literally go in and you can start tweaking these things. So we'll use anything from digestive enzymes to healing peptides like BPC 157 and KPV. We'll use different types of herbal medicine like oregano, thyme, to kill down bad bacteria non-pharmaceutically, and then help balance the microbiome. So there's so much stuff in this realm that you can do.
Yeah, I took a DNA test. Oh, it's not like a 23andMe, although 23andMe is like bankrupt now. They are done.
Really?
Yeah, they got like hacked, and like everyone's shit got leaked, and
Okay.
they're just, they couldn't recover. Mudo, however, I don't know if I have the test for it. Mudo is a thing that you can just go in and like you have a little spit tube and you give it that hakua and you spit in that thing, and then they test your DNA, and it shows you like your what like your sugar response is,
Yeah.
vitamin B. So and I'm like negative for like so many things. Like I've lower benefits, no benefits for BCAAs. However, on the physical stuff, I am gifted in power and stamina and other things.
Let's go.
Uh, so yeah, I worked out a lot. But yeah, I mapped everything, and it's so much easier to be able to measure. Like, okay, well now, DNA breakdown is going to be a lot, so I'm going to need more, folate and magnesium as opposed to someone else. Versus like, okay, I'm brown and I get less vitamin D from the skin, so I need to supplement that.
Right.
It's just really cool. I'll show it to you next time we come in.
Yeah.
Um,
But I love things like that. Like the more you can learn about your body now, I mean, you can individualize what you need versus someone else, right?
Yeah.
You need a lot of vitamin D. I'm white, so
so jealous.
I burn fast, and so like I have to taper myself with vitamin D exposure. I've got to try to get 20 minutes 5 days a week versus 2 hours one day because I'll scorch burn, and then everyone thinks that sun's a bad thing. It's not. It's just hyper exposure to it. You never get in the sun, you go for 5 hours. Yeah, you're going to increase your risk of skin cancer. But to say that you don't need sunlight is like terrible. But yeah, we all have this individualized needs. So I love it.
Then let's talk. We'll still on camera, but we'll end this here because I have a couple questions. Anything? What do you want to plug? What do you want to like tell everyone the website to go to?
Yeah, so we've had a radio show for 11 years in Columbus. So Be Aligned Health has been on the air since 2012, 2013. So I do a weekly radio show. It's on 98.9 if you're in Columbus, or you can follow us online at Be Aligned Health. So Be Aligned, ALIGNED Health. That's where we put our podcasts up and all of our health information, and get plugged in. So one thing I would give as advice to people is what I specialize in my community, and this can be anywhere, is you want to find someone near you who loves being healthy, who wants to stay healthy, and basically has a clinic where you can come in and say, hey, I need this, this, and this. And you can start working with a local doctor who cares about you, who can help you through those things. And one of our things is we try to keep everything that we do in our clinic affordable. And so it drives me crazy when people come in and they say, oh, like I have this problem and I want to do ultrasound for this problem. Well, the hospital, for the same ultrasound that we do that's regenerative, they charge 4 times the amount that we do, right? And so we've tried to make it as a goal is to have things inside of our clinic that are helpful for people that they can get access to that are affordable. And so I think that the more we can lower the barrier on helping people get healthy, the better that they'll be overall. So if you're listening out there, start today. Don't wait until it's, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. Little steps today make a big difference. Today I saw a 8-day-old patient, and I also saw a 90-year-old patient in one day. And so I see people starting life and ending life all the time. And what I can tell you is that the people who care about their health, who are advocates for their own health, who are actively engaging in doing healthy things and investing some money and time into it at a younger age, they're way better off dollars to donuts in the long run. So the more you do that, the better you're going to be overall. Find someone who can help you, advocate for yourself, and be around people who want to be healthy. It's a good place to be.
Dr. Lee Thomas, thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you for coming on. And obviously, hang on for a minute while I end this because I have 1 or 2 questions for you.
No worries.
Everyone say bye-bye to Dashi. Bye-bye.